Welcome back to the Elevated Entrepreneur, and today I am just so happy that you're here. It's a little bit of a rough start getting this podcast up and running again, and I'm going to be completely transparent with you. I attempted to do this twice, and I call it in my habit stacking moments where it's like, okay, I'm waiting for my kid at school, I'm in my car, so like the sound is okay, and you want to talk about glitches? First of all, I use Riverside, and Riverside the app that day, just like with obviously connection to cellular data, was not acting appropriately. So with that being said, first of all, it wouldn't even load enough for me to record. And then once it did, I was probably like 5 minutes out from ending the session. And then it was like, your session's been disconnected or whatever it said. So here I am. I am late on a Monday getting started, but better late than never. And it's a good tie-in to today's episode, I believe, because it's all about awareness. And I want to say today that you're not behind. Okay, I've had to take this message. I can't get my thoughts in order here. I want you to take this message that you are not behind, because this is what I've had to tell myself over the last few months. I know how it feels right now. Okay, you look around at where you thought you'd be. So I'm turning 41 this year, and I look at the goals that I had in mind, and I had a really nasty, depressive thought come over my mind for a few days. And it's funny because I was like, here I am talking about mindset. I talk about the positive, but I am going to shed some light because we all have seasons into the doom and gloom, if that makes sense. And if you're not where you thought you would be, it's okay. Things happen for a reason, and I truly believe that. If you are moving forward, maybe you don't feel like you're moving forward, but if you are slowly putting one foot in front of the other, or maybe you just literally feel stuck, I want this to be kind of like your reset day. You know, you set your goals up for January, and maybe you've been struggling to get that momentum. I know I have. I have a 12-month calendar on my wall right here. And I look at it every day, and it's probably the first time in 3 or 4 years where I was like, I don't know how to fill this out. I feel like there is a pivot happening in my life, which I'm trying to honor and show up consistently. So this is what it looks like for me. Maybe you started and stopped, just like me, more times than you can count. And I was talking with a mom at hockey on Saturday. And I was like, I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur, and it's been a struggle to do the quote unquote one thing. But here's what I've been sitting with all last week. Awareness isn't enough on its own. And last week, that's exactly what we talked about: waking up, getting honest, starting to see where you are and who you are as a person. So today, I want to go a little bit deeper on that. Today, I want to ask the question that's a little bit harder. Like, where are you really? I know Jenna Kutcher talks about how are you really? And oftentimes we mask how we're really doing, how our health really is, how our relationships really are, our relationship to ourself. That's like the key part. How are you really? So not where do you want to be, not where you think you should be, but like right now in this season, today, where are you? I want to talk about the gap between the expected and the actual. Nobody wants to talk about the gap, so we're going to talk about it today. We're going to dig deep. We're going to chisel away at some of this masking that we think that we're being strong. There's this thing that happens to almost every woman I talk about in business. And guys, I don't mean to exclude you. If you feel this, please join in. She had a plan, okay? I had a plan. You have a vision. I had a vision. We had a date in our mind, okay? Maybe it was a revenue number. Maybe it was a certain kind of freedom. And maybe it was just feeling like she had it all together. Okay, this ideal vision of yourself. I feel all of this right now. And then life happened. You found yourself standing somewhere that you didn't expect, okay? Maybe the finances dried up. Maybe the job didn't work out. Maybe the business didn't work out. Maybe your relationship didn't work out. And you think, how did I get here? Why does it feel so far from where you were supposed to be? This is the question that I asked. I was like, I had this dream and this vision a few years ago. If you don't know me, my story is I was in the beauty world for approximately, was it 15-ish years at the time. I was maxed in bookings, and we had a camping trailer in our driveway that I could not afford to pay for camping for our family. So I was like, how do I get down and dirty and think of something that I can, utilize? And it was to Airbnb our house. What can I use that I already have? So I had a little bit of money saved, and I used that to invest into, say, some new bedding, some new artwork, and I took a risk. And it turned out. And it was fun for me because this risk, I was still doing the beauty things on the side. I was still an esthetician. And here I am building this Airbnb business. And I just kind of put my head down. I was posting about it. I was creating and co-creating. Next thing I knew, over, a couple of years, like this thing was happening. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then we built 2 multi-6-figure businesses. Okay, not a ton of profit, which I've dove into before, and we'll talk about all that stuff on this journey. But it worked essentially. And then the market shifted, and then the people shifted. And next thing you knew, we went from like 25 properties to 5. And I questioned myself, what is happening? Things weren't in alignment. We had to address certain issues in our business. It was not fun. People were getting sick and had to go on medical leave. And the next thing I knew, that gap, that space that then went from 1 month to 3 months to 6 months to a year. That gap felt like almost like a failure to me. Now, if you have felt this, something didn't work out to how you intended it to do, I was like, I'm putting in work. I'm doing stuff that nobody wants to do on the back end. They don't see that I'm doing this. Take it as information, okay? I've had to forgive myself, literally. I've had to sit there in tears on my couch with my journal and say, just forgive yourself. Stop being so hard on yourself. It's telling you something, okay, about your pace, about your priorities, your season. But most of us, instead of getting curious about it, we just shame ourselves. And the shame and the why me, like all of that started happening again, and it was creeping up. We make it mean something about who we are as a person. Those things that didn't work out. And that right there is where we get stuck. So have you ever felt like you were in a waiting season? This has been my life over the last few months, waiting to get my feet back on the ground, waiting for my mindset to change. Even though I was like, I'm practicing this daily. Why is it not working? Waiting for the next thing to like pop out, as it did feel like back in the day when I was making that, like, I'm going to do this Airbnb, like it popped out to me and the nudge was strong and I just went with it. I was waiting for that feeling again. I was waiting for people to get hired onto the cleaning team. We used to have groves of people. We put an ad out, we'd have 2 or 3 people, no problem. The season is different. You might be feeling that in your business right now. You're trying to find those people that 5 years ago, you'd almost have to shoo them away. Like I'd have people walk through our door of our business and be like, I'm looking to get hired. I'm like, sorry, we're not hiring right now. Now we put the call out and it's a bit of a struggle. You feel like you're in the in-between, not where you were, but not where you're going, if you know what I mean. In that waiting season, it's kind of like this sticky feeling sometimes. You're trying to just be, but at the same time, you're like, okay, like I put a couple days in, like what's going to happen? You either pull back or go quiet. Well, I went quiet. I needed to. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just think in any decision you make, not to stay there. And some of us have started throwing spaghetti at the wall. I've done that before. So I've done both, and neither one kind of worked because the waiting season isn't a problem to solve. It's a season to move through. What do you mean, Jess? I think it's a good time in our lives to see what's actually important, how you're moving through it. Like right now, today, how do you feel? How does your body feel? How does your spirit, your heart, how does that feel? How do your finances feel? How do your relationships feel to your children, your significant other? So for us who come out on the other side, I truly believe that there has to be a time of that waiting season and that refinement. Stop doing the things that do not light your soul on fire. Don't force it. Stay faithful to the process. Even when you can't see the outcome, you know what to do. Today, if I asked you and I questioned you face to face, you know what to do. You've been doing this. So if you're in the waiting season right now, this is me telling you to keep going. I had to tell myself that. What's being built in this season is stronger than what could have been built if things had stayed the same or have been quote unquote easy. Getting honest, I fully believe, has to be set in the tone of grace, if that makes sense. You cannot shame yourself. You cannot guilt yourself. So give yourself grace. Get honest, but be graceful with yourself. I want you to think about one area of your life or your business, okay, where there's a gap, where you thought you'd be further along. Got it? Okay. Now here's the question. I want you to sit with it. Don't answer right now, but actually sit with it. Just kind of look at the scope like you're looking at a picture book. What has this season been teaching you that you couldn't have learned or if you had gotten there faster? What has that season been teaching you that you couldn't have learned if you've gotten there faster? Because here's what I know to be true. Growth that happens fast is often growth that doesn't stick. Like we forget about it, right? Slow seasons, the one that it's like that putty that kids get, that molding clay. It's kind of hard at first and it takes time to kind of get it molded. The slow seasons, the ones that feel like nothing is happening, those are often the seasons where your character is being built. Okay? You have to roll the molding clay, right? You have to warm it up. You have to maneuver it and knead it. Your resilience, your clarity, your roots, they can't be rushed. So instead of beating yourself up for where you are, I want to invite you to get curious about it. Ask, what does this season require of me? And what am I learning? If you keep putting busy things on your plate to fill a void, stop doing that. It's okay to not do anything and sit and be uncomfortable. And more of us need to practice that. I firmly believe that. I keep running into like conversations with friends and people that I mentor and all that when was the last time that you took time for you without music, without the busyness? And they're like, well, I don't like how it feels. I don't like to be by myself. Guess what? It's good for you. So instead of beating yourself up for where you are, I want to invite you to get curious about all of this, okay? It's not settling, it's wisdom. And this is how we learn. Do we ever talk to our kids sometimes and be like, you sit and you think about what you did? It's the same idea. The next part that I want to talk about, because sometimes I know with kind of our childhood roots, is that we feel like we have to have it all figured out right now. Like I'm at the age of 41. You know, I've been a person of passion in the business world and I keep finding cool new ways that I'm like, I like this idea. But I also have those scared moments that pop up and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then we find ourselves in kind of that boat of comparison because we, you know, say listen to others that are on YouTube and in podcasts and we follow people that we're like, man, like they have their shit figured out. Here's something nobody tells you when you become an entrepreneur is that you don't have to have it all figured out. And you're allowed to pivot. You're allowed to be the building while you're still learning. You're allowed to be that clay that changes shape. Heck, bring in another color. You know how kids take Play-Doh and they mush it all together and it becomes brown? You're allowed to be a leader and you're still allowed to grow. You're allowed to pivot. You're allowed to shift. You're allowed to do all of the things that don't work. You don't have to have the answers right now. And this is one of the messages that I keep telling myself. This might be the most important thing that I need to say today is where you are right now is not your final destination. It's just the next chapter. Chapters have to be lived. And it doesn't have to be rushed and probably shouldn't be skipped because we wouldn't be at chapter 20 if we didn't go through chapter 1 to 19. So if you are not where you thought you would be today, it's okay. I'll say it again, and I'm going to keep saying it today. You are not behind and you are on your path. But please do not stay stuck. Keep moving forward. What you know to be true. I know I need to move my body. Get out and move your body. You know what I did? I bought a walking pad, as in a week ago. I was struggling to get my goals in due to the timing of my day, how it's structured. The week that I have my kids, my timing is very small in the run of a day to do work. And I was struggling. And so before Christmas, I was like, I really need to get a walking pad so that, at least 3 times a week, at least 3, if not more. I really enjoy walking now. And when I walk, my creativity flows like crazy. So I thought about it. I put it in my Amazon cart. I took it out of my Amazon cart and I thought about it and I pondered over it. And I kept resisting to buy the thing that was going to move me forward. Oh, it's a little too much money. I should save this. I should put it on bills. But it was one of the things that was keeping me stuck. So I bit the bullet and I bought it and I set it up. And now I'm waiting for my standing desk attachment, which I'm super pumped about because I was feeling really guilty. Okay. Do I sit in my chair or do I go to the gym? Because right now I'm working on some pretty cool things and I need like all the time. And when you're in flow, like it's like I needed to be. So I was torn between the two. And I know that you probably have felt the same way. You're probably the one that picks up the kids. You're probably the one that runs in the sports. You're probably the one that, oh, they're sick. You got to stay home. Oh, you're probably the one. And then next thing you know, you kind of have this moment of like that was my last week. School was canceled a couple days. There was a PD day. I was home with a sick kid. Next thing I know, I was like, I barely worked on my business and I had nothing left in the tank at the end of the day. So I knew that I needed to be very wise this week with my time, but I also had to say, okay, who can I delegate this to? Who can I hire out? Who can I use on my team? All of the things. So if this episode hit home for you, if you felt something in the waiting season piece, I want you to take the next step. If you know that you should be journaling because it makes you a better human up in your mind, do it. Time it for 3 minutes, time it for 5, or write 5 things down daily. Start small again. Start moving your body. If you're used to driving to get your mail, and you could do a walking distance, go walk to get your mail. Start moving your body. I built something specifically for women who are ready to stop waiting and start aligning, and it's called Realign. I've been toying with this now, and I've had it packaged as like the 5-day mindset reset, and so I'm working on this because I truly feel like when we get to a certain point, we kind of need those questions prodded again. So I've been working on this and I'm very excited. It's not quite ready, but it's completely free and it's going to be a challenge for you. So if you're not following me on Instagram, I highly recommend that you go on Instagram. I am going to start posting again. Because for those of you that maybe are following me, you're like, I haven't really posted anything, Jess. Yeah, because I felt weird about it. But I am starting again. I want to talk about real life. I want to talk about being a mom. I want to talk about being a business. I want to talk about being a parent. I want to talk about being, a partner in life and how this all looks. But finding kind of my identity again and who I am as a child of God, putting God at the first and foremost part of my business and what this all looks like. And I will kind of end it here that I was listening to Stephen Furtick today, and his message was about I thought. And we have a lot of I thoughts, and it tied in perfectly to this. So I was super excited to record this. How many times we thought, you thought, I thought that the day was going to be different, that the week was going to be in a different direction. Our month was going to be full of flow and financial abundance, and it turns around and you have car problems and your house leaks and there was a pipe burst and your kid came home and was like, I need all these things for my sports, mom, dad, because we thought. And Stephen talked about how your thoughts can end up feeling like you're in despair, feeling like there is never a way out. Do you ever use those words? Absolutes. Never, always. But then you remember that you are not in control. And Stephen talked about, and then I thought, the redirection of the thought was like, I'm not at the head of the ship. I am not the one steering the boat. And then I thought, and he talked about it, Psalm 77, and that passage of scripture was like loud and clear to me. We all have our own thoughts. We all have our own ways. We are human. But what if we chose in this time of waiting Or maybe you're coming out onto the other side, you're getting your food prep back in order, you're getting your walking pad out, you're getting into the fresh air, you're starting to have those conversations with the people. You start leaning into what God has for your life. The waiting season will make so much more sense when we pivot that mindset. Well, I hope you guys have a fabulous day today. I'm so grateful that you showed up today. You listened to this. Like and share on your social as we get this puppy up and running again. It's a little bit messy, but as Brendon Burchard says, take messy aligned action. And I encourage you to do the same today. Have a wonderful day.